A little over 2 weeks. 2 weeks from Thursday from the Real Deal NFL Mock Draft. We are on to Matt Williamson's Mock Draft 3.0. I think we got this thing figured out. We'll let you know how it's going to go, a couple weeks early here on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love all the everydayers out there. Let us know you stopped by, hit that thumbs up, and welcome to the new listeners hanging out with us every day, breaking down the NFL in every single way. Right now, it is draft mode, and you can subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, where are we at confidence level? I feel like the draft process is a roller coaster for evaluators. And I'm looking at the class and it's like, okay, really like it. Look, there's this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. All these guys could be top 10 picks. And this guy's interesting. This guy's super interesting. Then you go through Combine and Senior Bowl and you go through all the processes. And then like a week ago, I was like, I hate all these prospects. Nobody's good. This is the worst draft. I don't like the third round. Now I love the third round again. And now I think I have a better idea of what's going on in this draft. Where are you in your roller coaster of emotions as it pertains to the 2025 class, man?
Well, I think the last time we did this, which was probably 2 weeks or so ago, I was super confident that Sanders was going to go 2 or 3. But now I'm pretty darn confident he isn't. And then it gets crazy from there. I mean, the things work out a lot better if he does. Now, I still find it odd that 32 teams have a first-round pick, and I'm that probably will hold up going into the draft, but I think that there is a lot of room for trades here. And frankly, I'm not impressed with this draft, and I really haven't been from the start. And I think there's fewer blue chip guys than ever. I think there's fewer guaranteed first rounders than ever. Difference makers, and I do like day 2 and I like the depth maybe more than recent drafts. But all in all, there's a lot of no man's land in this first round.
And I think that leads to our first conversation about why you have it projected the way you do in the top 3 of this NFL draft. I want to go to Jim Wyatt, who covers the Titans, and said after yesterday, this was a couple days ago with the Colorado Pro Day, one of the last pro days of the circuit. Jim Wyatt says, after yesterday's Colorado Pro Day, the Titans brass have met with Shedeur Sanders camp, and the parties have agreed to cancel their upcoming private workout.
Oh,
which to me says it's locked in. I mean, this is as locked in as we can get here in this draft with the Tennessee Titans going with Cam Ward, number 1.
Yeah, and that doesn't shock me, but it does shock me a little that there's no chance anyone could pry the first pick off them. I think Cam Ward's a really good prospect. I've warmed up to him quite a bit. I would take him at 1, but there's a price. You know what I mean?
I think we kind of already saw that with the Cam Ward Pro Day too, where the Giants signed Russell Wilson
the minute after.
Yeah. So I think those conversations kind of ended there. And so that's where we are right now. So that's an easy one, Matt. I think we in this mock draft, this is going to be a crazy draft. I've been talking about it. Never say, oh, this could never happen in a mock draft. But I think we do have a layup with pick number 1, Cam Ward, in your mock drafts. And so things get interesting at pick 2. You had Shedeur Sanders here last time to the Browns.
Yeah, this time I went with Carter. It just seems like I'm buying the buzz. We all fall for lying season, but it sounds like Carter's what they want to do. And frankly, I understand matching him with Garrett. I mean, that is a rare advantage that few defenses have. They have a ton of other picks that they could get involved with quarterback. And I keep lumping the Giants and Browns together. I mean, if I think they're going to end up with Cousins in Cleveland, is it much different to have Pickett and Cousins than Wilson and Winston? It's almost like the same quarterback room. And then you hope to throw Dart or Sanders or whatever into the mix,
When you put it that way, it's like, yeah, I might as well draft Shedeur Sanders because at least you have an unknown that could be better.
Right.
At the same time, when you read Shedeur Sanders' scouting report, it sounds a lot like Kirk Cousins anyway. So
yeah, and he's just a much less prospect than Carter, let alone Hunter, who I think is the best player in this draft. Yeah.
In the end, in this draft, and this is where I'm at too, and this is where I was at before, it just felt like the tea leaves were telling us that it was going to be Shedeur at 2.
Yeah, yeah.
There's the blue chip prospects, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and unless you love the quarterback, because look, let's say Shedeur Sanders hits and his relative ceiling of what you think he could be in the NFL, well, you're still, what do you have, the 12th best quarterback in the NFL?
I think he's like the current version of Geno if he hits 100%.
Yeah. And that's if you hit.
That's a 100% hit. I mean, that's the best case scenario.
If Cam Ward hits, you're looking at something probably a little bit different. And so that's where the Titans are at versus these other teams with Shedeur. You have blue chip prospects on the board. There's only a couple of them in this class. Abdul Carter goes number 2 to the Browns, and then Travis Hunter goes 3 to the New York Giants if we're playing it through that way.
Yep. And then I think New England hates life. They're like,
yeah,
we were so happy to get one of those too, and now I don't know who I want. Is someone going to be banging my door to go get Sanders at 4? Maybe the Jets would move up a couple. Maybe the Saints would move up a couple. Or do they just stay put and take them? Or do they not even that interested? And if you stick and pick, which is what I had to do for this exercise, what would you do if you were the Patriots? I gave him Will Campbell just because he's more of a left tackle than Membo, and it's a bigger need. But I don't like where they're at all.
And you don't have trades in this mock draft.
Right, I'm not allowed, yeah.
Will you have trades in your final mock draft, or you can have one more?
I think so. We're lobbying for it. So, yeah, I think we will.
Yeah. And by the way, later on this week, I think you can find the written version and some more explanations of Williamson's mock draft on Steelers.com.
Mm-hmm.
And so number 4, the New England Patriots go Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. Clear distinction there, offensive tackle. That 33-inch arm length might be the biggest measurement in this draft of all the testing. And by the way, so few players have tested. Like, how do you draft a first-round cornerback that doesn't have a 40 time? Like, half the and look, the film's the most important thing. And I think a lot of teams have GPS information that probably is very helpful. But this is a fascinating draft, and I think it could be all over the place. And I can't wait to see how many heads are blown away because the groupthink goes one direction. See what actually happens here. It does feel like Will Campbell is kind of like overtaken. Like, we kind of had the jump from the combine. Armand Membu, he's tackle 1 because he fits, the athleticism profile. He's got the longer arms, and he's a little bit more of a ball of clay, and he has the upside. And then I think the tape wins out in the end again. And Will Campbell is just someone who's going to knock all the interviews out. Teams are going to be very comfortable with him. And Will Campbell feels like is kind of making a comeback here late. 33-inch arms. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? I think the teams are just going to be comfortable that they're going to get a really high floor player that has a high ceiling as well in Will Campbell. So you got him going number 4 to the New England Patriots.
So I'm going to take this opportunity because I don't know exactly the number, but I was listening to Todd McShay's podcast. It's very good. And he said 26, I think, offensive linemen had longer arms at their pro day than at the combine. And how that works, folks, is basically at the combine, some entry-level scout like I used to be would have been the arm length guy. And he must have just been an asshole. Because at pro day, just so people know, what's that?
Or maybe just was taught to do it wrong, right? Like
that's what I mean, right?
He just part on the shoulder. You're supposed to do it from like the end of the scapula bone or whatever it is, or the dimple there. And so, half inch, that could be pretty easy to fudge. So he measured them all the same incorrectly, or like a half inch, whatever your body structure is there. And so, which makes a big difference, especially for some positions like offensive line. And there were some other position groups where guys like, I think it was Will Johnson. And it was like, you're 6'2", nearly 6'1", 6'2", and he had kind of shorter arms. Like, that doesn't really add up. That seems wrong. And so I think a lot of these guys, just add a half inch to every arm length at the combine, period.
It's crazy, yeah. And just real quick, like the LSU combine, it's not like the LSU strength coach does it. It's the Bears regional scout. I mean, it's not like you get a home field advantage on arm length because it's in your building. Yeah. This next pick I thought was kind of innovative.
I like it. Here we go. The draft gets real at pick number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is a spot that could be some action, could be very interesting here. Next, who the Jaguars take at 5, and we still only have one quarterback off the board. Where the quarterback's going to go? How many running backs go in round 1? And there's going to be a run, I have a feeling, on defensive linemen in this draft. Where does that happen in Williamson's mock draft 3.0 next? This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Taxes used to be waiting, wondering, and worrying if you were going to get anything back at all, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. Get those taxes in. If it's almost the draft, you know it's tax time. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, Cam Ward 1. We've got Abdul Carter 2 to the Cleveland Browns, New York Giants, Travis Hunter, corner, wide receiver, a little bit of both at pick number 3. The New England Patriots take the first offensive lineman off the board, Will Campbell out of LSU. And who's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 5?
I give him Austin Gentry. I just think he's awesome. in a class that's lacking blue chippers, are you going to reach for someone that's not usually going that high, or are you just going to take the best football player out there? There's been all kinds of talk about ATN getting traded. Tank Bigsby doesn't matter to me. Let's just give me good football players that make Lawrence's life easier.
Yeah, and the chalky pick at 5 has been Mason Graham, like forever.
Yeah.
And it never happens that way. So it almost can't happen. So
Joe Alta type.
I just don't want to put Mason Graham at 5 because it's just too easy of a fit. It almost never happens that way. And Mason Graham's stock could potentially be a little bit lower because of how deep the defensive tackle class is. Some teams could pass on it and say, look, we're at the top of the first round. We could get a really good guy at the top of the second round. And Mason Graham, the spring workouts and that sort of circuit hasn't been the best for him. And, he doesn't check a lot of boxes as, this is a top 5 guy because he's this much of a freak. And for that reason, I could see a team saying, look, Ashton Gentry's got this crazy grade on our draft board. He's the number 1 guy on the board. And so we're going to take him. And so you got to give him 5, which is about as high as I've ever seen him go. And it would be a fun one on draft day if we get to see a little bit of a shakeup there. But really what happened here is the chalky picks just get swapped because now you have Mason Graham going number 6 to the Raiders. Yeah. And that's where we see Ashton Gentry a lot of times.
That's true. And I have all those doubts personally about Graham, but I still think he's going to go high. This isn't what I would do. I don't think he's going to fall very far, maybe as far as 7 to the Jets, but he's probably going to go 5, 6, or 7. I just am not enamored with him.
He's a good, not great prospect, and you can poke holes in him, but that's kind of what this draft is all about.
I know.
It's harder to poke holes in Ashton Gentry, so I think he could go higher. I think a lot of really good running backs in this class could go higher than we expect just because their grades will be high, and there's less holes to poke in them. All these other prospects, there's some kind of hole you can poke into them, and I feel like more than ever, and these guys are lumped in, and so that's what's fascinating about this class to me. That brings us to the New York Jets at number 7.
Which is another player. It's hard to poke holes in Tyler Warren. I mean, there's not position value there, but help out Fields, tight end's a weakness. There's so many directions they could go, but I think that's a pretty safe pick. I think both these tight ends are going to go pretty high.
Carolina Panthers, they basically told us at the owners' meeting, the Panthers told us, I think it was the head coach, right? He's like, we're gonna draft a defensive lineman, essentially. So, and look, it's not like every mock draft has an edge going to the Carolina Panthers here. A lot of times it's Jalen Walker, which you do as well out of Georgia, who's an interesting. Jalen Walker isn't going to be a fit for everybody, but you love the way he plays. The best way I can describe Jalen Walker, Matt, is that he plays like, how a running back runs through arm tackles?
Mm-hmm.
That's how he plays as an edge defender. It's not like technique and hands.
Yeah,
he just runs through the blocks and gets there.
It sure seems like the league is really high on him, but I mean, there's not a lot of guys with his dimensions that are star pass rushers, but I think this is about as low as he'll fall.
Yeah, and the other thing that it's hard for us sitting here is we don't get medical reports. We also don't get character reports. And Jalen Walker apparently is off the charts, leader, team captain.
Yeah,
the straw that stirred the drink on that Georgia defense, and everyone raves about him. So I think that will, in the end, if you're a tiebreaker with teams and all these prospects have holes poked in them, you're going to draft the high character guy that you can trust is going to have a higher floor probably.
Yeah, he'd be a great leader for that side of the ball that they're trying to rebuild,
So here's an interesting quarterback slot now that we did not have Shedeur Sanders going in the top 3 picks, and that is the New Orleans Saints at pick number 9, Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado.
Yeah, I don't have much to add except they really need it. It's not the way they do business. I can't harp on it enough. The last time he was a first-round quarterback was Archie Manning. They're always in it to win it, so they don't invest in quarterbacks in round 1, but sure seems like it would make some sense.
Look, I'm not getting any younger, and when a team hasn't drafted a quarterback in the first round in my whole life, it's pretty tough.
Right.
Chicago Bears, Big Ten.
I think edge is a position that doesn't get mocked to them nearly enough. So I gave them Mike Green. I don't love the edge defenders they added in free agency. I still think that's an area of weakness.
I totally agree. And they still have some offensive tackles with some upside on the roster from the previous.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
They hit offensive lines so hard in free agency. I think that told us what their plan was in the draft, and that was to address the pass rush. So I think you're right on that. I don't think we see enough of a defensive line and an edge rush presence in mock drafts for the Bears at pick number 10. So I like the selection here for Chicago with Mike Green. And I think Mike Green's a top 10 guy. I think he belongs in this range because of his pass rush ability. But again, like the hole you poke at him is there's some kind of serious allegations and off-field stuff from his earlier career at past schools before he transferred to Marshall. So that's the thing. We won't know. But as far as his ability to pass rush, he might be the best in the draft as just a pure pass rusher. Like he's water downhill. He finds his way to the quarterback, has moves on top of moves. Love the way he plays.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a fit that not people are seeing. This other one's like a no-brainer for me. Would you run to the podium here?
Yeah, if it gets to this point for the 49ers, basically, to me, it's like if Mason Graham, Armand Membo, or Will Campbell are there for the Niners at 11, I think you just have to make that pick and run it in.
Yeah.
One of those 3 is here. It's Armand Membo out of Missouri. We talked earlier about how Combine, he kind of got a bump, and now, maybe teams do like Will Campbell a little bit more. I love the fit for the 49ers here because I think if you're going to draft the top 11 tackle, you probably want to flip him to the left side and be a left tackle, even though he's a right tackle in college, and he has the physical ability to do that. But the reason I like the fit is because you can give him a year or 2 at left guard next to Trent Williams before Trent Williams retires, and then get him used to, mirroring his stance on the left side, learning from a Hall of Famer, and then bump him out to left tackle. I would probably do that because the Niners have a need at starting left guard this year rather than just plugging him in at right tackle from day one, although you could do that and he'd probably be an upgrade over McKivitz at right tackle for the 49ers. So Membu's a great fit.
Great fit, yeah.
The scheme, the outside zone, athletic, being able to get out on the run, high upside player. So, yeah, easy one here at 11.
Yeah, I thought so too. And frankly, I like him better as a prospect than 3 or 4 names that came off the board already.
And look, and there's not that many pure tackle prospects in this draft. So, that's why those guys could go high. And you might see a team that's like, oh, man, are we going to draft a tight end? No, we could use a tackle. Let's draft a tackle. So, it might be Armand Membo that ends up in the top 5 and Will Campbell both. Who knows? We'll see how this thing goes. Dallas Cowboys at 12.
I gave him Matthew Golden. I'm a real big fan of him. I mean, I don't think most years he's wide receiver 1. I think they would grab Membo. They've already grabbed Graham, but this is a good compliment to CD Lamb.
Yeah, and when you're projecting the draft too, one of the things is who checks the most boxes, and we've talked about how many holes you can poke in everybody. Membo and Golden are the few prospects that it's like, yeah, they just kind of nailed everything through the process. And for Golden, it's like he might not played a 4.29, but he ran a 4.29, so it just makes the decision maker's job a little bit easier to turn in that card and potentially be the wide receiver 1 in this class. So Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas, staying in state to the Dallas Cowboys, which brings up the Miami Dolphins, who Teron Armstead has retired officially now from the Miami Dolphins. Now, they already had a need that was known at offensive tackle. Did that go into this process for you with going Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas, at 13?
I should say yes, but I turned this in and then I got news Armstead retired.
Yeah.
But so I'm not going to give myself credit on that. Safety and defensive tackle are big areas of concern for them, but I don't think they've invested in their offensive line nearly enough. And then you throw the Armstead thing on top of there, boom,
And look, this is kind of the end of the clean tackles. I think Connerly's out there too.
Right.
But if there's some movement in the draft, maybe offensive tackle is where some trades could happen if it's not for quarterbacks, with the team saying, man, you know what, we might have to go up a couple spots because there's no way these offensive tackles are getting past, 10, 11, 12, 13.
I tend to agree. I mean, when in doubt, if all these guys have issues, take the position that's most scarce in the league, tackle.
Talk to me about the Indianapolis Colts at pick 14.
Everyone on the planet gives them a tight end, and I get that. But I think Tyler Booker is perfect for them. Put him as the opposite guard of Quentin Nelson. They lost Will Fries. I don't care if it's Daniel Jones or Richardson. They want to run the football, and this guy's a run blocker. I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, he didn't help himself out with those wide zone teams with his athletic
testing.
No. But he's still just a rock solid player. I think he jumps in there and is a maniac as long as he's in the right scheme, which I would like that fit for the Indianapolis Colts. He's one of the best offensive linemen in this draft, despite the lack of measurables with the athleticism part. But he does have some other good measurables too. It's not like he's just a chump out there athletically. He's he's a captain at Alabama. He's got some stars next to his name.
100%.
And then Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of Texas A&M, going to the Atlanta Falcons at pick 15. Do they actually fix their pass rush here? Because this is something they've been working on for a long time.
Everyone on the planet gives him an edge rusher. And I just have to laugh. Like, if he ends up here, he still won't get any sacks because nobody gets sacks there. Right.
You're not allowed to at the Atlanta.
Right.
We'll finish up the rest of this first round of Matt Williamson's Mock Draft 3.0 next with the Arizona Cardinals at 16 all the way through the Philadelphia Eagles at 32. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson, sponsored by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and you wonder, where'd all that money go? Between dining out and online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending all in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Tons of insights with Monarch Money, and you don't really realize how much money you're spending on food delivery, coffee, whatever it is every single day. You can budget smarter and save more, and this is huge. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use Locked On NFL, the code. That is code Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code Locked On NFL for half off your first year of Monarch Money. Here we go. Arizona Cardinals pick 16 in round one. Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. I like the fit. I like the spot. And it's still, I just can't put Will Johnson, and really for that matter, Jahdae Barron, the top corners in this draft. I mean, they're kind of zone corners.
Mm-hmm.
No 40 time for Will Johnson. Can a team draft a corner with no 40 time in the top 10? I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, and frankly, I think he's a better prospect than number 16 overall. But again, there are questions, and he's more of an off-the-ball zone guy. I think Arizona would eat it up, though.
Yeah, injuries too, which is part of the reason why he hasn't run, or is he just kind of ducking the 40 time, which a lot of prospects have. And I really wonder how it'll affect some, because some positions it's like, you know what? If a defensive lineman doesn't run a 40, I don't really care. But a cornerback, you kind of need to hit a threshold for me to draft you high.
And his film doesn't look like he's a burner.
Right. And there's a question on tape of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think he is scheduled to work out here at some point in the next week.
Real late. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll see if he actually does get a 40 time on there. Cincinnati Bengals, Mykel Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia. This is a tough one for me. I have a feeling Mykel Williams is the one where the tape is good, not great, but teams just kind of fall all over themselves for prototype defensive end bodies, and he can stop the run. and he's got some pass rush and actually got home a few times, unlike Shamar Stewart. I think Mykel Williams is one of the guys that it surprises potentially how high he goes, and I don't think he gets much further than mid-first round. He might be that guy that all of a sudden pick, 6 or 7. You're like, oh, Mykel Williams is already off the board.
Yeah, he could go to the Saints or the Panthers or a team like that. Yeah.
That is the Cincinnati Bengals selection at number 17 to pair presumptively with Trey Hendrickson for at least a short time there in Cincinnati and maybe replace him. Then you got Ted McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, going to the Seattle Seahawks, another guy whose stock has kind of slipped a little bit.
Very different, obviously, than JSN, kind of a DK Metcalf replacement. I mean, I think they got to go offense pretty heavy.
Defensive line, anywhere on offense, could see the Seattle Seahawks going a lot of ways here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a good feel for the new regime yet in Seattle.
Good point.
They're still trying to put together their own program there right now. So that might be like one of the last big pieces for them in the first round to be like, we want to be this. And so I wonder what that will be for the Seattle Seahawks at 18. 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking the first true off-ball linebacker off the board, Jihad Campbell from Alabama.
This is another one that's a little chalky. I mean, if he's there, I think they grab him. It's certainly a need. He could learn from David,
In this era of NFL football, we get to pick number 20 now with the Denver Broncos, and Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. Is this like the class, the talent of this draft class has put it this way? But there's, a lot of people talk about, the running backs are making a comeback now in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Got too pass happy, too light in the box. Now the running backs and running games are going to make a comeback. Like, this is the rare class, and we may never see it again where the running backs are like going higher than the quarterbacks.
Like last year, though, there's no way Omarion Hampton goes 20 over Brian Thomas and Tanu and Fuaga and, all those.
He doesn't go higher than
Brian doesn't go in the first round.
Yeah, he doesn't go higher than like the third quarterback either.
Right, exactly. I mean, 6 quarterbacks go ahead of him. So it's a weak class, and it's a need, and I think Denver would like them.
Yep, and I think when you're trying to find, what teams are willing to draft a running back high in this era, find kind of an old school coach. Mm-hmm. And, you look at the Pete Carrolls of the world. You look at teams that really value the running game. You look at the Steelers a couple years ago who drafted the running back in the first round. And you look at Sean Payton. I could absolutely see that at number 20. Speaking of teams that had drafted first-round running backs, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers not taking a running back. Who do they take at 21?
Walter Nolan. I really think this pick will be Harmon, Grant, or Nolan. And maybe even in a trade down, they don't have a second-round pick. D-line they need to find a young D-lineman to learn from Cam Hayward.
I think talent tape, Walter Nolan is at worst the second best defensive tackle in this class, and maybe the best defensive tackle in this class. He's in this range in every mock draft, and this is even early. I see him at the top of the second round sometimes. Mm-hmm. From like the most plugged in insiders mock drafts too, I'm talking. So the off field has to be real with Walter Nolan, and it's not like a motor problem. He plays hard. He's like he's got everything you want. He was taking on double teams as almost like a nose tackle at times at Mississippi. He'll be more singled up and playing 3 technique, I think, in the NFL, but he can kind of move around, play 5 tech. He's strong. He's an awesome prospect, but he's been getting paid since he's 15 years old. He's a mercenary. Does that make him like more of a pro or less of a pro? But the whispers are speaking loudly here because of the fact that he's not getting mocked in the first half of the first round.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on, and this could easily be Grant or Harmon.
Chalky pick here. We see a lot of this. Jim Harbaugh reunited with Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. Anything else to add?
Nah, I mean, it's a good fit and all the familiarity.
Fit, need, get some more weapons there.
Yep.
He loves his guy. Then we got Jahdae Barron here, corner from Texas, going to the Green Bay Packers. Love the fit here. In fact, I think I had this in my last mock draft as well. Yeah, good fit.
I don't love their corner situation, and frankly, I think he should have been picked well before 23.
I do think Jahdae Barron is the opposite of Mykel Williams, where they're kind of in the same area of mock drafts. I think Mykel Williams is higher than people expect. I think Jahdae Barron goes lower than people expect because I think NFL teams will see more of a nickel, and nickels just don't go high. And so that's why I know Barron won't go as high as some people are talking about as like a top 10 prospect. We got another defensive back here, Nick Emanwari, South Carolina to the Minnesota Vikings.
I do this a lot, just so kind of like the Steeler Cam Hayward thing. Learn from Harrison Smith, you raw young fella, and that Flores would love him.
What do the Houston Texans do at 25?
I know they signed Cam Robinson, but Josh Simmons could just kind of get healthy in the meantime, bump Robinson into guard or whatever, or move him to right tackle. True left tackle that falls to 25, I'll wait on him to get healthy.
I mean, this is kind of perfect. They
kind of perfect, yeah.
Have the need, and then you have a stop. It's almost like when you're developing your young quarterback, right? You've got the stopgap guy there, and for Simmons, it's not because raw talent or whatever. It's because of his knee injury. And when you draft him, you're not really going to know exactly when he's going to be ready to play or what he's going to be. But at 25, with the need to the Texans, I think it's a perfect fit. Love this one, Josh.
I don't know how they would pass on him. Yeah.
Interesting dark horse team in the draft. You never know what the Los Angeles Rams are going to do. They love to trade and they love to shock everybody. Rams at 26. Talk to me.
I give him Jackson Dart because I do believe he'll be a first-round pick. I don't think he'll be the 21st pick to the Steelers. I think he'll end up in like Cleveland or the Giants. So I wanted to get him in the first round. But Stafford's already talked retirement. I know they gave him an extension, but Dart needs a year. It's be a great landing spot for him.
Absolutely. And the Rams were willing to move on from Stafford this offseason. It's not a long-term proposition with Stafford. And they tried to trade up reportedly for J.J. McCarthy in last year's draft. So they have an eye on future quarterback. So dark horse teams for a QB. Jackson Dart to the Rams at 26. We got the Ravens at 27.
I gave him James Pierce. I think they could go a lot of different directions too, but talented guy that they could just bring him off the edge, when they're winning games.
I hate the way this draft is laying out because these teams that are already good are just going to sit back and collect some like really good player.
Right.
And we talked about how, Shamar Stewart in Atlanta is going to end up being a bust and not be a good pass rusher at 16. But James Pierce to the Ravens, of course, that's going to be a hit.
Exactly. It'll make it work. They might bring him along slow and give him a third down stuff, but then he'll be a 12-sack a year guy in 2 years.
All right. I mean, immensely talented and some character stuff there as well, which is probably why he falls to the late round 1 area, maybe even into round 2. Detroit Lions with Josh Connerly, offensive tackle out of Oregon. I listened to Nate Tice's podcast recently, Matt.
Okay.
And he had his dad on, Mike Tice, former head coach, former offensive line coach in the NFL. He had Josh Connerly as his top offensive lineman in the entire draft because of that athleticism. Former high school running back, by the way, Josh Connerly.
I know. And again, they don't really need it, but tackles are hard to find, and Decker's up in age, and figure something out. They don't have a lot of needs.
He's going to go.
Yeah, he's going to go. That's the thing.
Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State, to pair with a former Ohio State wide receiver with the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, let's just give Daniels everything he possibly can. He's a lot different than Debo. He's a lot different than McLaurin, but more importantly, he's younger,
Interesting one here. I like the fit, and I do think there's potential for the guys who are the quote-unquote nose tackles to fall a little bit because NFL teams just do not like two-down pluggers this day and age. Now, Kenneth Grant has the athleticism to be a lot more, but there's still some development needed as a pass rushing defensive tackle. So you might not get a lot more than a defensive tackle, despite all the physical talent that Kenneth Grant has. So you probably shouldn't be shocked if the nose tackles slide a little bit with Kenneth Grant.
A ton of them too.
You can't slide too far, but Buffalo Bills at 30. Some people might say, "Oh no, he's going to go in the top 15." He might not.
Yeah, and there's so many noses in this class. You could get a quality one in the 3rd or 4th round. I mean, I know he's a little different, but I think that's why the Steelers take Nolan over Grant.
Well, here's the thing.
What he does is a little different.
And you could argue it's like, okay, well, Kenneth Grant's, big and, can play over the center and take on some double teams and has some athleticism. But actually, if you want the better just run stuffing nose tackle, Tyreek Williams might be better.
I know.
And he's pretty athletic himself, maybe more upside with Kenneth Grant. But I think that's how you talk yourself into letting the nose tackles slide a little bit. And there's a bunch of them all the way into, it's a great year to run a 3-4 defense. We got stand-up rushers. We got 5 techniques. We got nose tackles. We haven't seen a lot of those recently. You always see a lot of stand-up rushers, but the other two, there isn't as many as there used to be. Yeah.
There's tons.
All right. You go ahead.
And then the Super Bowl teams are kind of the same situation. So I gave Donovan Jackson to the Chiefs. I gave Derek Harmon to the Eagles. Well, Milton Williams left, insert Harmon. Joe Thuney left, insert Jackson. I mean, boom. Keep it going. Do what you do. Why you were in the Super Bowl to begin with.
And you start to see where the strength of the class is, because you could argue that Derek Harmon could go as high as potentially top 15. And Donovan Jackson's probably one of the best pure offensive linemen in the draft. He's just, not really a tackle, even though he showed he could play some tackle, filling in for Josh Simmons at Ohio State. So just good players fall into the end of round one.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll gladly sit back and take linemen.
That is Matt Williamson's mock draft 3.0. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. You can drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Of course, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.